let's start with the injuries because that was a big headline of today. And I know Kyle Shanahan spoke about the injuries playing a part in releasing Greg Joseph and therefore just Jake Moody on the roster for the kicking. Was Deommodore Lenoir back on the field today? And if so, to what degree?
He was back on the field today. I don't know exactly I didn't see how much of practice he participated in, but he was out there initially. And, he's got a little bit of a hip and a little bit of a hip injury, and they want to be careful with him. So my guess is that, they're going to bring him back gradually and kind of build him up, maybe with the goal being to, have him go more full come Thursday when the Broncos are here. It's just kind of a guess, but he was out there, but it wasn't a full participant.
Larry, the headlines of today, I think, are the injuries and just the roster at a point in which Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and everybody made the decision they couldn't keep two kickers right now, and they got rid of Tanner Mordecai. They made a flurry of moves right as practice was set to begin that were announced and became official. But I'm looking at Isaac Garindo with a shoulder. I'm looking at Kevin Givens with a pec. I mean, he's somebody that I think was in the mix to start on the interior defensive line. This team is as optimistic as they are about the season ahead. It's not the big names, but when you factor in, what's been going on with Lenoir and Jennings and Renardo Green on top of some of the names I've mentioned, it's that next tier of big and important names that are, they're really banged up at that level right now.
Yeah, no, there's no question, JD. I mean, let's just go through a quick list. Garendo has got a shoulder injury, and Shanahan said that he should be out a couple weeks. So then you got Jordan James has some form of a knee. I don't know about his status when he's coming back. Kyle Juszczyk has got a little bit of an Achilles, but we don't know as far as so he said someone stepped on his Achilles. So I don't know, how serious that is. Ayuk remains out with the knee. Jauan Jennings, I think we got an indication today from Shanahan that Jennings is not hurt. I mean, Shanahan was asked about Jennings' calf injury, and Shanahan, who never likes to lie, never likes to say anything that's not true, had a weird look on his face, and then he said, he tells me it's his calf. So I just feel like Jennings is, it hasn't been reported as such, but I think he's holding in. I think that if he had held in the first day, the Niners knew it was going to be a three-ring circus of every day, Jennings. So he came out the first day, and it was like, I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to practice. And it's like, isn't Jennings the world's greatest guy? He's not holding out. He's not holding in. He's just going to play. Well, and 2 days later, he's got the self-proclaimed calf. He's never been on the field since. He's not on a side field working out the calf. He's not worth a trainer, doing anything, that we can see calf-related. So I don't know, man. If I had to wager everything I owned on Jennings' calf, I would say that there is no calf, and that seriously, greenbacks will make his calf go away. But there's other injuries. Evan Anderson's got a knee bruise. He'll be back soon. Sam O's got a groin. He's going to be out for a little bit. Jair Brown's got an ankle. Mikael Williams got a little bit of ankle. He practiced today. The big one, I think, JD, is Kevin Givens. He tore that pec last year. It caused him to miss a huge chunk of the year, and now he's having problems again with the pec. So I think that's why they signed Bruce Hector. They made a number of signings we can get into as well. But, yeah, I mean, right now, it's early, and some of the rest is precautionary. But, yeah, the injuries are starting to mount.
Talking to Larry Krueger here on the Yuma Guest Line. You can check him out for Niners Nightly, YouTube-only edition the next two nights with the Giants playing in Pittsburgh. First pitch at 3:40. A lot of shuffling going on with the wide receiver unit right now. Andy Isabella and Robbie Chosen, a couple names that are new. Did you get the chance to observe them up close today, and was it primarily special teams work that they were doing, or how was their practice regimen?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because, I asked Shanahan about this after practice as far as I said, hey, Kyle, last year you guys were 32nd in wide receiver separation, and then you drafted Watkins. He's got 4.3 speed. You signed Nayer, who had 4.4 flat speed. They cut him today. They signed Robbie Chosen as 4.36 speed, and then they picked up Isabella, who has 4.31 speed. Shanahan said there is no change in philosophy. They like good receivers, and they'll take them in any size, shape, or speed. But he did also mention that Isabella's got an ankle injury, and that could be why Chosen was signed today, is that Isabella popped up with an ankle injury.
Krug, what stood out today? I know we were both out there on Saturday, and it was the Ricky Pearsall show in a big way. I know we've discussed when we were both sitting in together, just the Niners bringing him along slowly. He was the best player on the field on Saturday. Was he able to get back out there and make an impact again today? And what else stood out?
Yeah, JD, he was awesome again today. Pearsall looks like the Niners' number one receiver. He had a great practice the other day when you were here, and he had another great practice today. He made a series of catches. I think Purdy to Pearsall, Purdy to Kittle, you're going to see a lot of that early. Purdy hooked up with Kittle today 3 or 4 times. He hooked up with Pearsall a bunch. But I would say, as far as who looked really good today, Upton Stout is having himself an amazing camp, and he was phenomenal today, guys. He made a couple plays against the run. He had a couple PBUs. He really, really looked good. Very noticeable. He looks really good. And then Mikael Williams had a couple of amazing reps in the one-on-ones where he just is way too quick for the guards, and they just whiff on him, and he gets right by. So I would say Upton Stout and Pearsall. You know who was here today at practice, and I just saw him walking out of back to the parking lot, was Chris Conley. And Chris Conley was a great special teamer. And the one theme from yesterday and today with today's cuts, I think it's real clear that the 49ers, who were horrible on special teams, the worst in football, 32nd in the league, are so committed to turning that around this year that Isaiah Nair was cut because he's got to be a special teamer if you're the 5th or 6th wide receiver on this team, and he's not. He doesn't really have a role on special teams, so he's not here. The third, Mason Pline, very talented young tight end, but you know what? You got Dwelly, Tongas, and Willis, and Fleury, the tight end coach, told me yesterday that the third tight end spot is definitely going to be predicated on who is the impactful guy on special teams. So they're trying to emphasize special teams more, and that means they're going to trade some guys who might be better long-term with potential to operate from scrimmage. They're going to cut those guys in favor of guys that they feel like can help them week one on special teams. So it's a strategy. It's an interesting one. The other thing that continues to happen down here, guys, and I have to mention it, is Sebastian Valdez just looks monster. And he looked, again, incredible. This is the defensive tackle, undrafted, who just is incredible. And then we talked to Dom Pooney after practice, and I said, Pooney, what do you like about Valdez? And he's like, he said the O-linemen call him the Incredible Hulk because he's just so built. And he's like, he just wins with speed. He wins with power. He wins with hands. He wins with hand placement. He's like, they got something there. I mean, Pooney's not a very good liar, so I think that was probably the first acknowledgement that this Sebastian Valdez is pretty special.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask you about next, Krug, because I've heard you talk about Sebastian Valdez when I've been out in the evening listening to some Niners Nightly, and I saw that quote there from Dominic Pooney where he talks about how he's so built and calls him the Hulk. Undrafted defensive tackle. With all the injuries and the type of camp he's having, I mean, does he look ready to make an immediate impact if he's got to be getting some heavy playing time week one?
I don't want to sound absurd, right? But, Greg, I think that's the case. I think, he's an undrafted player. And when I asked Robert Saleh about him this week, he said, hey, look, let's wait until Denver gets in here and then we'll know after Denver's here what's real and what's not. So that's an acknowledgement on several levels of a few things by Saleh. It's an acknowledgement that Sebastian Valdez looks monster in this camp and that he looks amazing right now, and nobody could deny that. But it's also a little bit of pump the brakes. Maybe it's almost like Saleh saying, hey, he's going against Drew Moss and Connor Colby, the Niners' backup interior guys. And he's not ripping those guys, but maybe he's suggesting that there may be some better competition out there. But I'll say this, nothing about what Valdez does in these one-on-ones is about Connor Colby or about Drew Moss or about anybody but Sebastian Valdez. So I think he's legit. I think he is absolutely, especially because Alfred Collins is not much of a pass rusher right now. They'll be looking for that interior pass rush, and Valdez can provide it. Now, you only have so many guys up on game day. They'll have to fight that battle, but I think you're going to see him active on game day at some point.
All right, Krueg, what do you make of Greg Joseph getting cut? I know Kyle addressed the reasons why and just the inability to carry multiple kickers at this point, given how banged up they are, and they need bodies in a bunch of other areas and guys to be able to get reps and also have their reps among the regulars limited some. So the kicking competition for now is over. What's your read on at some point do they look to bring Joseph back, or is it just Moody's job in your mind until the regular season and then maybe they go in another direction if he falters then?
You know, I think everybody's first thought is to look on the surface and be like, oh, Moody beat him out. And I would not put that down as Moody beat him out. I mean, it was basically a dead heat. I would guess. Now, I don't have a source. I haven't talked to Lynch about this. I haven't asked him. But I've been around football enough, and I've been around football operations enough to know that sometimes, you know, if you get a veteran kicker to agree to sign with you, you know, you may have to promise the agent, hey, you know what? You know, we'll get this done. You know, I mean, we're not going to drive your client off the cliff. We're not going to ride your client to the 53-man cut down when there's no jobs available and then cut him for our guy, use up his, you know, chances, and then have him on the street. So my guess is that when Lynch has talked to Greg Joseph's agent, that there was maybe like, hey, take a good look, but hey, if you think you want to stay with your guy, give my guy a chance to hook on somewhere else. And that is, I think, what's going on here. Shanahan did make the point, though. Just because there's no second kicker doesn't mean that Jake Moody's home. He's still going to have to make kicks. If he makes kicks, he was going to be the kicker whether Joseph is here or not. And if he misses kicks, he's not going to be the kicker whether Joseph is here or not. So it really doesn't change anything for Jake Moody. He still has to make kicks. I think it was my guess is that if I had Lynch sitting here, I bet you Joseph's agent said, hey, look, if you get to a certain calendar date in camp, if my guy is not beating out your guy, you know, your incumbent, let's cut my guy loose so we can get him in another camp and he can get a job before week one. That is my guess. So I think Joseph may wind up somewhere else, or he also could just be a phone call away. They could be stashing him at the Hyatt Regency across the street, you know, but they needed the roster spot because of the D-line injuries, and they felt like this was a way to get the roster spot.
Well, Krueg, we're grateful to get your insight fresh off of practice, and we're going to be really excited to have you join us again on Thursday. Great to hear about the injuries, Kyle Shanahan's comments, the kicking competition, guys like Sebastian Valdez and Upton Stout, who are big-time performers right now. Have a safe drive home and keep that phone close because we're going to be texting you, and it's going to be a whole lot of communication. It's August 4th, so we're ramping it up. It's football season, baby.
No question. And, guys, it was great to see you guys last night. And we had our 49er KNBR dinner.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just wanted to say, you know, Greg Papa, if you're out there listening, Kyle Shanahan gave you a shout-out today. We love you, Pop. We stand with you. We know you're going to get better. And, you know, we got this until you're ready to roll. And we're dedicating this season, all of us are, to making KNBR's coverage of 49er football the best it can ever be. And, Greg, get better.
Wow, that's pretty beautifully said. Shout out to Kyle for the shout out to Greg Papa. Draymond Green also put something on his social media over the weekend. So a lot of people who are big-time names in this business have been sending their thoughts, and that's pretty cool to see. It just goes to show how lucky we are to work with someone like Greg Papa. Krueg, thanks so much, and we'll catch up with you in a few days.
Sounds good, boys. We'll talk to you soon.